Hey guys, you want a build that will carry your group through a legendary run with ease? Stick around, I'll show you the build I'm using right now that's pushing us through District Union Arena Legendary, and it will also help you out in that other legendary and endgame content. Stay tuned. Welcome back, agents. It's Graphology here. I'm bringing you another Division 2 TU15 build. This one is for players that do not want to go solo weapon damage, or they're not feeling the Eclipse like CC build or whatnot. This is a build that I like to call Universal Soldier. It's been in the game for a long time, but I'm updating it now with the TU15 weaponry and armor sets that are available. So let's get right into this build. So we're going to stop doing jumping jacks there. So the first thing you want to note is I'm making this without any exotics in the armor pieces. I like to try to restrict my builds so that exotics aren't part of them, you know, mainly because of RNG. I know that RNG is a bitch in this game, so we're going to go without exotics. Just know, as a disclaimer, this can be run with an Acosta backpack here or a waveform here. But I'm going to show you without the exotic pieces, okay? So the three main brand sets that you want to get are the Hannah U, and you want to get 3 pieces of that. You want to get a Wyvern, and you want to get a Cheska. The only slot that's really necessary is the Fox's Prayers here, and I'll get to that in a second why. But, yeah, so starting off with the Hannah U's, this piece right here is kind of what you want to hunt for first. It's the Force Multiplier named backpack for the Hannah U. It gives you perfectly combined arms, which is another 5 or 10% skill damage for 3 seconds after you're shooting an enemy. This build requires you to be coming out of cover and actually using your weapons. But the good news about this build being a skill build is your skills are going to take threat on mobs for the most part. So mobs aren't going to be focusing you as their priority after your skills are deployed. Unlike, say, a CC build where you're out in the open and you get screwed because Riot Foam doesn't take, Riot Foam or a Fire Starter isn't taking threat away from you. So yeah. You want to go Hannah U's. You're always going to get 3 core skill core things off those. You want to re-roll the Hannah U's into skill damage, and you always want to watch for either crit hit chance or crit hit damage on all these pieces. So really what you're gunning for here is Hannah U's with either crit damage or crit hit chance, and then the other stat you want to roll into skill damage. Skill damage is going to be the primary focus of this build. And it's going to buff your 2 skills that we'll get into later in the video. All right. So focus on skill damage with a secondary either crit hit chance or crit hit damage. Those are going to be your stat priorities. You're going to run 3 set of Hannah U because you'll get skill haste, skill damage, and weapon damage, which again, you'll be using your weapon with this build. The Wyvern piece is to get you an extra set, or skill damage rather, for the 10%. The Cheska is to help with your weapon damage. So the 10% crit hit chance is actually for your weapon damage. It's probably the crit hit chance is arguably the best damage stat in the game. Excuse me, I'm slurring over my words here. You definitely want to try to get your crit hit chance up to close as you can to 50%, 60 being the cap. But, again, yeah, you want to make sure that you're hitting crits as much as you can, all right? No matter what, as long as you're using your weapon, you should be going for crit hit chances, the moral of the story, all right? And then the last piece, this Fox Prayers. Now, the Fox Prayers, unfortunately, for most people, aren't going to get the skill damage. And because you're running Cheska, you either have to find a Cheska with skill damage on it and then re-roll the primary stat to skill tier, or, like you see here, I lucked out and I got a Fox Prayer with skill damage on it. Now, it isn't 10% skill damage. I can optimize that later, but I want to reroll that weapon damage into a skill tier, which would give me essentially 5 skill tiers on my armor, along with the 6th from the technician specialization. That gives me the 6th skill tier that you're seeing right here. And that, of course, will carry over onto my skills. Now, again, going back to the specializations, you want to make sure that you go technician, and that's mainly because you're going to be going for the linked laser pointer, and you want that extra skill tier, you know, from the specialization. When you level it up, you get a +1 skill tier from it. All right. Now, the linked laser pointer comes into play when you're looking at your chest piece. So your chest piece is, this is again a Hanny U, and I got it with the spotter. Now, amplifies total weapon and skill damage by 15% to pulsed enemies. Well, if you're using any weapon with a long rail on it, you can put that technician linked laser pointer on, like you see here, and you're going to have that pulse up on everything that you target. So as long as you're aiming at a target, that target is going to take 15% multiplicative damage from both your skills and your weapon damage. So that's very important, okay? Now, as far as the weapons go, you do see that I have a capacitor here. However, it is perfectly fine to use any weapon that it has a long rail on it with a long rail. So essentially any of the ARs or an LMG you want to get. And an LMG, the AR and LMG have to have in sync on it, in my opinion. In sync, basically what it does, if you forget what it does, is hitting an enemy grants 15% skill damage for 15 seconds. If you're using skills on those targets that attack it, then you get 15% weapon damage. If both of these buffs are up, which they should be all the time, because you're going to be firing your weapon and your skills are going to be attacking consistently, you're going to double those effects. So you're going to get 30% skill damage and 30% weapon damage added. So that's a huge buff for this build to have up essentially 100% uptime. There's very few or very small windows where you will not have that 30% skill damage and weapon damage up. And so going back to this, if you don't want the capacitor, you can run, say, I got an AR here, this military AR with InSync. I mean, it's got accuracy on it. I could probably roll this to damage out of cover, get 10% multiplicative, and there you go. That's really what you want a gun for. On any weapon that you can get with damage out of cover, that's 10% multiplicative or whatever that percentage is. That's multiplicative damage plus the in-sync buff. All right, so that's what you're gunning for on your weapons. All right, if you have a LMG, the only downside to an LMG is that mobs will get suppressed. So if you have suppressed mobs, then you're not going to be able to fire and keep up that 100% uptime all the time. If you're only, if you're firing at like 2 or 3 mobs, they may be suppressed and you won't be able to get that weapon damage in order to get the 30%. They'll only have 15% skill damage on them, and that's what your skill will be doing to them. All right, so going into skills, you are going to be using the assault variant of the turret and the striker drone, and these guys will essentially be up at the start of every pull. You will focus this sentry turret down before you engage, or as you're engaging, you'll throw that turret down in somewhere convenient so that it can hit as many mobs as possible. And then you're going to throw this striker drone right out after, and you are just going to be hitting your Q and E or whatever macro buttons you have to make sure that these things are continually firing on a target. So let me give you a quick rundown of how it's going to work. So starting the fight, I'm going to set up my turret. We're going to focus at this, throw out my assault, and I'll watch the damage. So I'm using the Harmony with InSync, with perfectly InSync, so I'm getting an extra 10% on my InSync. You notice that my InSync is constantly going. And this thing will just shred. This is on named mobs. Alright, this is a named mob on Heroic. And this thing is shredding pretty good. Now, I'm hitting with my weapon for anywhere from 500 to 700k a shot because I'm using a rifle. The Fox Prayer is also buffing that with the 10%. Now, the reason I use capacitors, say you're using, you're going to the next pull and you don't have your things or your things are on cooldown, your skills are on cooldown. You pull out your capacitor, And your capacitor's still hitting for, you know, about 3 mil DPS. This one's actually about 2 mil, but that's also because I missed about half my shots. So yeah, if you notice, I'm hitting like 2.5, 3 mil. Earlier it was 3 mil. I don't know why it's 2.5 now, but yeah, the capacitor gives you the extra damage, weapon damage increase for every skill tier gain. So essentially, you know, if your skills are on cooldown, you can switch to the capacitor. It will do a decent amount of damage until your skills come back up. You pop your skills out, and you can either keep your capacitor up and do this damage buff for the 1.5 damage every hit that you gain, or you can switch back to your harmony or whatever weapon you have in sync on. That could be your main weapon. As long as it has a tack laser on it, that is your main goal, is to make sure that you have the tack laser for the pulse. You know, get that pulse going, and there you go, right there. Like, look at those shots. This is a non-weapon damage build, and I am doing 665k a shot on the head, which is not bad. All right. So. Final verdict of this build, I would use this build in legendary content. So, like, you know, if you're doing legendary missions, I would use it in heroic content, definitely, because it will just rip apart players left and right. I would not use it in a raid. The main reason I would say that is because, unfortunately, your drone and your sentry turret are limited in what they can attack in raid bosses. So, you know, there are a few bosses that they actually will come in handy, like Lieutenant Williams, the third boss in Iron Horse. You can use that 6 skill tier turret to essentially tank the boss, which is really good. But other than that, there's very limited, I guess, usage for this build on bosses that you can actually be an effective damage dealer on the boss. So would I use it in Dark Hours? Probably not. Would I use it in Iron Horse on Lieutenant Williams? Yes. Other than Lieutenant Williams, and maybe add control on Morozova. But again, Morozova, you got to be careful, because if your drone or your sentry turret focus her, you're going to be taking threat from your tank that's tanking Morozova. And you don't want to essentially be doing more damage to Morozova than the tank already has to stagger. All right, so it's a very limited build as far as for raids go. But any open world content, summit, countdown, legendary modes, by all means, this build is very good. Know that you are squishy and you do not have a reviver hive, obviously. So again, take precaution when you're using this build. Don't be gun-hoing. You kind of want to stay back, let your turret and your assault drone take control of the ads. Then you can pop up and fire a couple shots, get that combined arms from the backpack on it, and put spotter on those targets. All right? So guys, I hope you enjoyed this build. I'm going to show you some quick gameplay right after this. Leave a like and sub if you liked it. Leave a comment if you didn't like it, or if I can do something better in the format. I know I was kind of stumbling around on my words there. I could probably edit these videos, but I like to just do one takes. Fuck it, you know. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys on the next video, all right? All right, guys, so you just watched my video on this build I'm showing you right now. It's the same build that I showed you guys a second ago, all right? We're going to be doing this next pull here. I got my things on cooldown. I'm coming back up. Got the Harmony ready to rock. Going to pop out my Sentry. This guy's going to steal my Thunder right here. Gonna throw my Sentry up. We actually have a CC'er in this group, so it's kind of nice. But look at the damage numbers that my stuff's doing right now. They're taking threat. They're doing good. There we go. Yep. Drones doing damage, baby. Look at this. Boom. Picking them. Picking them. Pick it. Keeping that in sync up. Keeping that in sync up. All right, guys. This guy really needs to chill out with the deaths. Alright. Hopefully he watches this. Alright, I'm gonna have to break this, so moving up. I might die here. Getting that instinct buff up, waiting 10 seconds. Whoop, not what I wanted to do. You guys are just seeing me fail at everything right now. We got a nice CC build in here too. This is nice synergy. Gonna throw my sentry out in a nice spot. And there we go. It's just gonna start lighting stuff up. You see the numbers on my screen. That's... Oh, there you go.
Agent down. Immediate medical assistance needed.
Look, even while I'm in cover, my stuff's doing work. There we go. And that's it. Okay, so going to the next area, I'm canceling out all my abilities so that they come off cooldown. Reloading my weapon, making sure that's full up. Now, if both my abilities were on cooldown, I would switch to this right here, but because I'm already going to get my sentry back up, put this right here. Okay, so the sentry's already doing work. The sentry's doing work. Just get a couple shots in, release the birdie. Here we go. I just want to make sure the combined arms, look at combined arms, and there we go. Instinct's back up. This thing's down. Not even going to touch me. Done. And just like that, going to cancel out because I know the next pull's coming up. Both of them on cooldown, so I'm switching over to my capacitor. And we're ready for the next pull. 10 seconds till next pull. This guy's CCing. I'm going to throw my thing. And as you can see, the capacitor is still doing some work right here. Still doing work. Okay. Threw out my sentry. I'm actually going to move away from my sentry because my sentry's going to take some threat. Switch back to my harmony for instinct. And the tack for the 15% multiplicative. And I'm just going to start sending my drones and my other stuff on targets. Here we go, that's good. Here we go, clean it out. I'm gonna go back and pick up my sentry. So it's got a reduced cooldown. In the meantime, I'm gonna just make sure that, I'm gonna make sure that I don't die. I'm gonna throw my sentry right up here. There's a dog in the back. I'm sending my drone on the dog in the back while my sentry works. Let's see if that dog's coming back. All right, there it is. Home's dead.